Hi everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Mashtia Collective podcast. We are here in a new noisy yet beautiful setting.
Yeah. We're trying something new because, we are honestly very funny people. We are.
If we may say so ourselves.
We say so ourselves. But I think this current setting of talking about more like loaded topics has made it difficult.
Yeah.
For us to be ourselves. So we're trying,
And also, to be completely honest and like kind of pull back the curtain a little bit, and not even that much, because it's very evident that we are like not native English speakers.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
And not only because of our accent, like we've said it many times, and we very openly talk about our background often. And we're not native English speakers, like not Canadian. And this is the first time, we did a whole episode about the different iterations that Mashtia has gone through. And most of them, probably with the exception of B, have been like in Spanish or very much, influenced by our background and by our language.
Totally.
And for any other bilingual people, you'll know that like your personality kind of really changes in a different language, or a different side of you might come out. And like, for example, for me, English has always been the language that I resort to when I want to express like deeper ideas or more academic ideas or something like that. So it's like I know, and I'm aware of this of myself, that I speak less casually in English than I maybe do in Spanish and whatnot.
Yeah.
So this has definitely been a shift for us. We're still kind of exploring that part, but upon kind of reflecting, we just wanted to try to make the environment where we record and the topics that we record about as casual as possible. Yeah,
and like still talking about creativity, but in a way that reflects who we are a bit better, I think. Yeah,
totally. So, Juli, today we are actually talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, I think, because it's like one of those things that I still struggle with quite a bit. And it's kind of that gap between your wants, like what you want to do, and what you feel that you should do. And this was honestly birthed out of our conversation. Well, I've had this conversation with you, but I was having it with my mom this morning as well. Way too early as well too to be talking about this. It's like 5 or 6 a.m. and I'm like, but it was like we're talking just about academics, you know what I mean? And I think I've said this before on here, like we both said it, like we're multi-passionate people in the sense that like every time I see a course about something, I'm like, oh, I could do that. Like I could go with that.
We're talking about this exact same thing. Another course that we both want to do.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I love like taking language courses and this and that. But sometimes this tension exists in me with like, what should I be doing, or what do I think I should be doing? Because that's a difference too. Like some of those shoulds are so self-imposed where I'm like, what do I think I should be doing in order to progress my career, to advance it? And that often comes in the voices that tells me like something will look good on my resume, for example, or something's gonna lead me to another title, or a promotion, or a wage increase, like a salary increase or whatever, because those are by and large the standards of success that have been like set by the world. And I was like, but if I would be doing what I want to be doing, I'd be pursuing a lot more writing stuff, for example. You know what I mean? Like in terms of this was all in the context of academics. So I was like, I would have already enrolled in like a master's or creative writing or something like that. And obviously the question is like, well, why don't you? Because no one's saying no. But I think it's just like I haven't yet figured out how to say, like, silence some of those shoulds in my mind.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's an interesting topic though, because I think about it often too. Like, if money was no issue, what would I be doing? And most often it's not what I'm doing currently. You know what I mean? Like I feel like this is common for many people. You know, like some people are very lucky and blessed to do what they would do if money wasn't an issue. Like I'm thinking of singers and things like that. People that are like very passionate about what they do, and not even like even doctors and whatnot. Like lots of people find lots of fulfillment in what they do. So the gap between the shit and the what you should be doing and what you want to be doing is not that big, because it's one and the same. But I think for most of us, especially for those of us who have that creative passion kind of burning inside us, but we also have responsibilities in this world that need to be taken care of.
Yeah.
It's like, the gap is really big. And for me, often I try to do that exercise a lot. I talked about this book already, the Ali Abdal book, the Feel Good Productivity.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole section on it about it, and it's like he talks about that, like how to kind of advance your life in a way that it aligns with your values and what you want to do. Money wasn't an issue, because then eventually you're going to get there, so it makes you money, so money isn't an issue anymore.
Right.
But yeah, it's so difficult. I feel like for me, I find myself like, because I know that what I should be doing to advance my passions is very important, and what I should be doing to advance my careers in the financial side of it is also very important.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to find a way to like marry those two things in my head. I feel like it's just difficult, and especially when you have, like for me, I've had this project that I've been wanting to do for the past 2.5 years that needs funding, and it's hard to find funding if I don't get on it.
Yeah.
To try to find the funding. But then it's like, why would I waste time doing that if I could invest this time doing something else that's gonna make me save money, for example?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a difficult line to walk because they're very rarely one and the same. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, the interesting thing, like, at least for me, it's also like, so a lot of these things are not even mutually exclusive. Like, they don't live on separate ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the things are actually quite easily jointable. If I can say it like that. Like, I can easily see how I could marry, like, my current job with some things that I like more, but I think it's more, at least for me, it shows up in like the future planning aspect of things, where at the same time I'm like, that's probably like a topic for a whole nother episode, like the whole idea of like future planning and all of that. I'm one of the people who deeply believes that COVID definitely burst our bubble.
100%.
Yeah, that we somehow have control of the future.
Yeah.
And yet I feel like a lot of people reverted to like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Despite the fact that we all already know that it's just an illusion. But even then, like, I think that my gap between the should and the want, like, it comes up so much for me in the realm of like thinking of the future and thinking of like, for me, it comes a lot in my academics. Of course, it comes too in like more of the micro things, like when I'm watching TV and I'm like, oh, I should be exercising, but or should be writing or whatever. But it definitely comes up a lot in the sense of just like the future planning and like that battle between what I want to pursue more of and what I feel will give me the success, quote unquote, that the world deems as such, even though in my conviction I don't believe that that's success. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But somehow there's like this very naggy voice that I'm struggling so much to get rid of.
Yeah.
For like how to stop planning around what would look good,
Yeah. And I think we got into a little bit last episode about talking about how we both have a hard desires and needs play, and it's time to wander, and it's time to, and if you don't know what we're talking about, what we're referring to when we say play, you can go back and listen to that episode after this. But we basically need create that flexibility and that freedom. Yet this, like, a society where the world kind of breeds you to conform in a way. And I'm not trying to be like anarchy, but you know what I mean, like in a way, like it like breeds you to conform to the rules. Because what tells you what you should be doing, what you should be doing?
Yeah.
Sorry, what tells you what you should be doing?
Yeah.
Like, because lives are so unique. Like in my mind, like for me, the way I want to live my life. It's not how I do it, but the way I want, because I'm also, my mind is bred to conform but wants to not conform. So in my mind, I'm like, the way I want to live my life is I want to, the only things I know that I should be doing are the things that align with my values. So if my values are faith, if my values are family, if my values are creativity, then all the things that I know that I should be doing in theory should align with those values, and because those are my values, those are the things that I want to do. But in reality, it's the opposite. It's like, oh, I need to start another side hustle because because I want to make more money.
Yeah.
For what? I don't know, because it's not like I need more money.
Yeah.
Or I want to start this or that because it's going to make me look so good.
Yeah.
Or because this is what my dad dreamed for me. I mean, it's not my personal case, but, you know, some people have that.
Yes.
And so it's like, who tells you what you should
Yeah.
be doing? Because, like, life is such a personal journey. And I think part of it, and I always end up, like, blaming social media, but part of it, honestly, is the constant need to compare, because it's so easy for us to compare, because it's just so accessible for us to see other people's lives.
Yeah.
Or a snapshot of what other people show us.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like, no, we each have our own lives. It's like, there's this bit in the Bible where, like, in like the one of the Paul's letters, like, run your own race. Like, you know, I have run my race. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. It's him doing it. That means I gotta run my own races. If I try to run someone else's race that I'm not prepared for, then you know, and that applies to everything, to your career, to your finances, to your relationships, to your like romantic relationships, and to your creative journey too. Because oh my gosh, there's a huge seagull. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because this is the wonders of filming outside.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just doesn't. It's just silly to try to put kind of expectations on you that don't apply to your personal journey.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? One of the things that you said actually brought this to mind, which is like that difference between the doing and the being. And it's something that I think in my own life I'm trying to navigate as well. Because of course, who we are, like our identity, determines a lot of our actions and behaviors, but they're still distinct. Like one definitely influences the other, but and it's like, it's so interesting that sometimes some of those wants come from that identity piece, like from who we are, right? Like for example, in my case, like my desire to write comes from my identity as a creative, for example. But those shoulds are often much more aligned with the doing than the being. You know, some like in some senses, and so maybe not always, but like in some senses, and so I feel like sometimes that tension exists between who I say I am, and as you were saying, like what values drive me, and the way that I'm doing or what I think I should be doing. And so sometimes when there's this misalignment, I think that's where we enter into like this dissonance, right? And this and even that burnout that we were talking about last time, it can definitely be the result of like just for an extended period of time behaviorally doing what we quote unquote should be doing, but that perhaps is like contrary to who we are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there reminds me of this other book I read. These are all good to remember for ours. If you don't follow us on social media, you probably should, because we post some of these recommendations.
Yeah.
And then you can, you know, share them with someone or save them or whatever. So if it helps you can also see it there. But anyways, this is book I read. I can't remember the name of the author. It was Paul something, I can't remember. But the book is called The Pathless Path. And this whole thing was about, he was like in finance, part of the big four. I don't know which one, but he worked in one of the big four consulting firms. And he was like getting all the things he wanted, he wanted to and should get, like the big apartment in New York and the big promotion and the corner office and all those things. And then one day he was like so burnt out that he was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And just quit everything. And I think he was sick. I'm not exactly, I can't remember exactly, but I think he had like some chronic illness that also prompted him, and the whole like living someone else's life in a way, like that wasn't necessarily ever his, made it worse.
Yeah.
And so he quit his job and like moved to Southeast Asia somewhere and like started this consulting kind of freelance company. And the whole idea he talks about is that the basic thought is like caminante un camino. So it's kind of like that like idea that like you don't have a path, you create your own path. And so like that's the whole idea. Like the path that other people have created for society is now obsolete, to be quite frank. And like for us, it's like, okay, how do we walk the pathless path?
Yeah.
And ultimately, what's our purpose in life? You know? And that's a deeply personal thing.
Yeah.
But in the end, the only shit that we should have is living in a way that aligns with that purpose and with those values.
Yeah.
But it's so difficult when we live in a society that has created those or like made those paths so that you can walk them, and it's like then you have to go walk down in the jungle because there's no path made. So it's kind of like you kind of have to cut your own, grab your machete and like because it's a path that you are making, and it's so much more effort. Yeah. And people don't get it, and so you're kind of going through life trying to explain yourself, and in a way it's also like in my mind, and I'm just probably being deeply cynical because I'm in a season, you know. But
Yeah.
in my mind, it's like, it's none of your business, you know. It's like
Yeah.
my life in a way, you know.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also, because I think a lot of these shoots, now that I'm thinking about it, at least from that kind of more career oriented perspective, can sometimes be rooted in fear too.
Oh, totally.
Because like in that conversation that I was having with my mom and stuff, she's like, well, but because I have an uncle who's a nurse. And he was saying like he's already retired, but basically he still does that casual like work and shift and stuff. And he was saying how like he was being called to do more shifts because of course there's a nurse shortage. I think pretty much probably
Worldwide.
everywhere. Yeah, everywhere in the world. And so my mom was like, so like aren't you interested in nursing? Like there's a sure job, you know what I mean, or something. And so I think that sometimes I'm like one. No, respect to all the nurses, but truly,
It's not your calling.
it's not my calling, and I don't think you want me as your nurse either. So,
Like you like, sorry, it just reminds me of the time that you went to the store to get toilet paper and you go home with paper towels.
I'm like, I don't think you want me as your nurse either. So I was like, no. But for a lot of people, like certain career choices and whatnot are made out of that fear of like, okay, what will give me like a sure job, or what will what will get me to the corner office, or what would. And we've kind of talked about this, like when we worked together at an organization previously, they do like the Berkman personality test and whatnot, which is like a very in-depth kind of personality assessment, where you get to see even like what your intrinsic motivations are, what your usual behavior is when you're okay, and like then what your I guess skewed behavior is when you're under stress or something like that. So it's very comprehensive. And the point is, like, within some of the like motivation indicators, there is one for like material reward, or like be it via benefits or like an actual high salary or like some sort of things. There's other people who are like more intrinsically motivated by recognition. There's other people who are more intrinsically motivated by just like different things. And so I feel like there are people like, of course, like I'm not personally motivated by these things. I think my indicators that like people or something. So I have geared a lot of my career and stuff to working in places that have that like do work for people, you know what I mean, and like have impact on people and whatnot. And I know that this may sound like I'm standing on some moral high ground, but no, I think it's just like the way we're all like designed. We're all motivated by different things. Different things get us to like get up in the morning, and so there are people who like are motivated by their corner office and will get up every day to get to the corner office. And if you get it, and that's an alignment of your like, who you are and what you get to do, then that's amazing. But I feel like if you're just like chasing that path out of like, again, this shoots or out of like that fear of like, oh, this is what will give me that security and that stability, then I think that at some point then you will definitely experience that like that gap, right? Or that tension.
It's dissonance.
Yeah, that
it's
dissonance.
like and I was talking about this with my therapist, like with our therapist, actually, because we're talking about burnout, stemming from last week's episode again, and it was like because in my head I find it very difficult, and it's probably you can relate to this. I find it very difficult to believe in two truths that at the same time. Like for me, like for example, I need to work and I need to rest. Are two truths that in my head are incompatible.
Okay.
But they're not.
Yeah.
You know? Like because both of those things are true. Like I can especially because I have a very flexible schedule. I can totally work 3 hours, rest 2, work 3 more, rest 2. Nobody's telling me not. But in my head, when I sit down to rest, then in my mind I'm like, oh, I need to be doing this. I should be doing this. And then I end up not resting because those two truths are incompatible. So a homework for me, and I haven't done it, is to write down all of the truths that in my head don't work together, and to kind of see it in a more rational way, to see that in reality those things should be compatible. So I think in the end it just there's always a dissonance if you're living a lifestyle that doesn't go according to your values, and that's why ultimately leads to tiredness, to burnout, to anxiety, to because that you, for example, for me, like if I'm living a lifestyle that's not according to my values, and I'm working or trying to motivate myself by things like money, for example, because I don't really care. That I want to live a comfortable lifestyle. That's as much as I want. Like I don't care about flying first class. Oh, well, maybe one day, but like nothing. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not but motivated by having loads of money in my bank account.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing something that will eventually get me money, and I'm just working for that. Like I worked at a construction company for a bit, and if anybody knows me, it's like the most like opposite to who I am, and it was like such like I'm grateful for the work because it was cool
Yeah.
to be able to have that opportunity and learn a lot, but it was such sterile job work from what I like to do, and I was feeling so empty because it was like
Yeah.
nothing like what I want, and so like when I try to motivate myself by something that doesn't motivate me, it ends up being a dissonance with what
Yeah.
I believe in.
Yeah.
And it ends up tiring me out even more and emptying me out even more.
And it's probably like a place where you could have like continued to grow and just push yourself and like
100%.
convince, you know, because it was like, you
Yeah.
know, good pay, like a very reputable company. And then you're like, you know, if I just keep going in this path.
And in the
then-
city we live in, the construction is everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it was so easy to be tempted by those things.
Yeah.
But in the end, like it's just, you just kind of gotta be true to yourself, and it's a very difficult exercise, I guess, that we all have
Yeah.
to go through and like write down our values. What do I actually value?
Yeah.
What do I want from life? Not just in a like superficial, I guess, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
materialistic way. Like, oh, I want this and I want that. Like oh, I want to travel. Those things are important to me.
Yeah.
Like, but what do I want? I want to wake up in the morning every single day for the rest of my life. And what do I want to do?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because I feel like none of us, like the reason why so many of us want to just retire is because we don't live a life that, and including myself, we don't live a life that like represents our values properly.
Yeah.
You know, because we lived a life that represents our values properly, then there wouldn't be a gap again. So going to the beginning between the ones and the shoulds, because it's one and the same.
Yeah.
You know?
And even like in the places that you're like involved in, and I was just having this conversation earlier today with some people, and they were like, you know, sometimes not all the work will be fun or stress-free or comfortable, but if you're also working in a place that aligns with those values, you can keep going, you know what I mean, because there is no dissonance in that, and I know that it's very hard and it's not always possible, but personally I've been very fortunate to work at places where I'm like the values they espouse are very much mine. Like in my own case, as I was sharing, like my whole dissonance, huge word, it already passed. My dissonance truly comes from like what my next step academically is going to be. But in terms of work, I think I feel very fortunate that I work at places where even when sometimes the tasks might seem tedious or mundane, I'm very proud to say that I work at X organization because there's a value, like clear value alignment, and where I get to see the tangible results of my work, or like, you know, after many steps, because it's very bureaucratic. Yes, but I was part of like at least one of those steps in making certain things happen, and I think that is also you know, just a huge privilege where you're like, you know, because obviously not everyone will be able to like, you know, work for yourself, or, you know, in like a smaller way, but in a way that like you can at least, as you were saying, like get up in the morning and know that you're gonna be doing something that has some sort of value to you, you know, and I think that's super important.
Yeah, and even just going back to what you're talking about academically, because you want to do another thing academically.
Yes.
But that's something that for you is very obvious. But not everybody has to.
No.
Which is another thing. Like, I feel like lots of people are living in a shit. And I think the way the world is moving, people are placing a little bit less value on university degrees and such, because you can learn a lot of things online, honestly, like nowadays, and the traits, like you're saying, your uncle is a nurse, like those kind of like tangible traits, they have so much demand right now. But even then, like if you feel like you want to go to university to study, I don't know, liberal arts, but there's work in carpentry, and you don't want to be a carpenter, but you know, it's the same thing. It's like you don't have to take a step just because society asks you to do it.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to be that rebel.
Yeah.
But it's what we were talking about last week. I was just actually editing a clip from last week, and that quote has stuck with me all day. Is that just kind of like using the resources that the society has given us to walk in that path and flipping it into society. Like last week, you were talking about, you know, like putting in the calendar blocking time for you to have play.
Yeah,
and that's one way. Yeah. Or using education as a way to continue to further your values and your vision and the thing that you feel that you have in your heart, rather than going to study finance just because it wasn't, you know.
Yes.
And that would be like, maybe for you it's like, oh, I wanna do something academically, what's gonna further what you have in your heart, rather than just furthering something for the sake of just having another paper on the wall that nobody's gonna look at, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's so key as well, because like, and again, we go back to like each their own and their own passions, but like academics is a big thing for me. I mean, for the longest time I did consider a career in academia. I can't say that I have like fully scratched that, to be honest. Just because I know this sounds like so nerdy and whatever, but like I genuinely enjoy the process of academics. And so for me, I'm like, you know, even thinking about this, I'm like, what degree do I want to complete where I can like rid myself only of the perception and the misconception that it's only for the purpose of getting a job. You know what I mean? Or not even just getting a job, like getting a promotion, or like having look nice on my resume or whatnot. Because truth be told, as you're saying, like there's so many less commitmenty I guess ways to get those skills. You know, like if I want to do certain skill developments and things, there's like a lot of diplomas and certificates that are faster and require less commitment, both financially and in time, than a master's degree does. Because like a master's degree, especially like in big universities like, you know, UBC or SFU or whatever, sometimes like they require this 2-year commitment. If you're doing it part-time, as I probably would, then more. You know, they tend to be a little bit more expensive. They tend to have some required courses that may or may not be like as tangible and applicable to like developing a certain like hard skill in something. So, you know, at that point, I'm also thinking like, okay, what do I want to do that, yes, it's going to add value for my life, but that I want to enjoy? And I think that that's kind of where sometimes the want and the should can come. You know what I mean? Where you're like, if this is my desired, whatever my desired goal is, I actually have a lot of different avenues to get there. But it's like, I want to study for the pleasure of it.
Yeah.
Because I like it, because I like academics, and because I've set myself a goal to like complete a master's degree. But what can I do it in that will be both enjoyable to me and allow me to enjoy that process, and not just be dreading it until graduation.
Totally.
So like as you said, so I just have a piece of paper on the wall. And then if I have other things that I actually like, hard skills that I need to develop for a job, okay, I can definitely search for educational opportunities, but maybe it's not a master's. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a different, it's another course or a certificate, that will kind of get me to that more tangible, practical goal. But in the other sense, at least for me, it's like a little bit more of that ethereal, just like the enjoyment of study and academics. Well, what's going to get me there? Maybe a degree like, I don't know, education and society or something like that. That's very abstract, that will probably not land me like a corner office immediately, you know what I mean? But that maybe I might enjoy something different, like more than like finance, as you say. That will be just like for getting into it for very practical, quote unquote, reasons, right? Yeah.
And ultimately, like I'm preaching to myself here too, I guess, in a way, like ultimately it's a very exciting time to go and do those those abstract big things. Like if you want to go get a degree in whatever, classical studies, and something that, I don't know, is very like big, because it's never been easier, as you're saying, like to get hard skills in other places. Like it's never been easier if you want to edit videos. It's never been easier to learn how to edit video on YouTube. You don't even have to pay anything. Like honestly, YouTube. Like there's different things that you can just learn on YouTube. Of course, we talked about it before. You don't learn how to do surgery on YouTube. Please don't. But but like there's certain things that you can, and so I think getting those like bigger, wider opportunities. I think all, because why is it the best time right now in my mind? It's because ultimately, like, the future of work is also changing, and people place a lot of value in soft skills that are very, very hard to teach. Because I can train someone on how to edit a video, but I can't train someone on how to be teachable, how to be resilient, how to be all these things that you really do learn in university, for one, but also you learn as you live. You know, and some people have more than others. So I think, and also like the future of work and the future of creative endeavors and everything is like, I think it's open as it's ever been. You know, so you know, I think I personally take a lot of encouragement in that. Like sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm like, what am I even doing with my life? Like I quit my 9-to-5 job not to be doing this or that. I mean, it's not all the time. Sometimes, like most times, I'm actually really grateful. But sometimes I'm like, what am I even doing? Where is it even going? And what are my values? And why do I feel like I'm purposeless or whatever? Like, but yeah, then I go back to the point where, okay, these are my values. I try as much as I can. Of course, as long as we live in this world, it's gonna be hard to every single thing you do in the day for you to align. It's very hard because there's a lot of things you can control and a lot of people vying for your attention. So it's kind of like, but like, I don't know. I feel like it's just so exciting to live a life, even if it's within the realm of the possibility for what you do. If you have a job that's very strict or whatever, to try to find ways to continue to further your values, because ultimately they're gonna make room for you. I believe that. I believe that as much, like, if you pursue something that you're super interested in and you're passionate about, that's going to make room for you, because ultimately you're going to be that person and that's a voice and an authority in that environment and in that space. And you see it all over the place. People that have gone so passionate about very little things, and they're when we talked about this earlier in an episode. I can't remember if it was in Spanish or English, but in an episode about, like, do you want to be Taylor Swift or do you want to be like someone who's like a niche, like experts, and it's those things, right? It's like, as long as you live a life according to your values, I think those are things that are gonna make room for you, because I feel like in this big wide world there's room for everybody. It's just following what you feel like you have in your heart. Like, for us, it's following the gifts that God has given us, but for others it's following the abilities or what makes them tick, and like what makes you move, what makes you, and ultimately that's what makes you have room and have a space in this world. Because if we're all finance bros, then there wouldn't be art, and there wouldn't be, and if we're all artists, and there wouldn't be banks. So ultimately we need everybody, and there's people that are passionate about finance and love, like, spreadsheets, and I always say the spreadsheet because for me it's like super foreign. So I have no other.
We're sure there's more.
And we're sure there's more. But for me, that's like one of the things I hate the most. Stocks. Yes. There you go. Love day trading. There you go. And some people who can't stand them. I know that, but I feel like we need a balance for everybody, and I strongly believe that if God's put us on this earth, it's because we have a space. And the more we follow that little flame, the more we're going to find where that space is. I find it very hard to live for the future, to be really honest. Like, I used to be super, I know you remember when you first met me, we used to be super obsessed with the future, and then a lot of things just came crumbling down, and I stopped. And then through me believing in God, I started, like, realizing and learning some other things in life and how the future for me would look like. And right now, I'm trying so hard to enjoy what I have right now. And not get preoccupied for the future. If I make a decision to learn something that is gonna take me 2 years, like a master's, then I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. But I'm gonna learn my lesson today. Because I think the pandemic has taught us anything can come crumbling down. Yesterday on Tuesday, there was a plane. I don't know if you saw this news. There's a Singapore flight 321 from London Heathrow to Singapore. There's a Boeing 777-300 ER that was flying over the Bengal Bay. The Bengal Bay is very well known for having a lot of turbulence. And the plane caught a whole lot of turbulence. It had nothing to do with Boeing. It's just the plane went through, like, this very big weather area, and it started shaking and dropped. And someone didn't have their seatbelt fastened, and they came flying up, hit their head on the little cubby thing where you put your bag, and then came back down and had a cardiac arrest and passed away. And the person was pronounced dead when they had to divert to Bangkok, because they had to, like, they're flying from London to Singapore. They had to divert to Thailand because lots of people were, like, had very big injuries, and this man passed away. So, like, bro, you could get in a flight tomorrow and you don't know what could happen. And so it's like, of course, plan for the future. The future, save for retirement, save for a rainy day, of course, all those things. But also,
that's true. And I feel like it's kind of so cliche in a way. Because everyone's like, oh, life's so short or whatever. But I think it's true, and I very similar to you. Like, I used to live my life so much in the if onlys of the future, and so, like, being that very future oriented person. And again, that was truly a result of all those shoulds in my life, because ever since I was young, I was like, what are you going to study in university, and where are you going to go, and, like, what do you hope to do with that? And like, all these questions that inevitably lead to think about those shoulds. But I think that I've also become way more and worked so hard also to be, like, more present and learn. But like, it's sometimes also very hard when other people knew that version of you, the planner version, and then you're like, no, on, bro, let's like chill and enjoy today and be present in the moment.
Yeah.
And then people are like,
What the heck?
yeah, what the heck? Because there's like a resistance to that, to the change, to the not engaging, especially if that person is still kind of stuck in those like shoulds, and in the future it's like, why are you not engaging in this? You know what I mean? And of course, as you say, like it's all about striking a balance.
Yeah, because no, you can't just like be present. And
Yeah, just like whoa.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, but definitely like letting go a little bit of that, and that's easier said than done. But maybe it's like prompted a little bit of that reflection. I know it has in me, at least, where I'm like, oh, why am I feeling this tension? Why am I feeling so fatigued? Why am I feeling burnt out? And maybe it has a lot to do with the fact that in some areas of my life, I've been living in that, in that dissonance and in that space of like, and I think I've said this before, like the proverbial square in a round hole or something like that. We're like trying to just fit in to a space that I'm like not designed for, not meant for. So
Yeah, I think that's a really good thought to close in. Like, enjoy the present, people.
yeah,
Because it's all we have.
yeah. Agreed. Well, I think that's going to be our closing thought for today. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We really sincerely hope the audio came out well with all the construction going on downstairs. We came as high up as we could, as you can see in the video, and we could still hear the noise at ground level. But I just hope everyone's having a great week, and that this episode has prompted some reflection. So you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and also YouTube. Yes, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. And we'll see each other next week.
Bye.